She stands before the mirror, applying lipstick with the precision of a woman who has learned that perfection is a form of armor. Her reflection smiles back, but if you look closely, really look, you can see the shadow behind her eyes, the one that never quite matches the brightness of her expression. She adjusts her dress, straightens her shoulders, and prepares to step into another day of being everything to everyone, while slowly disappearing to herself. You know this woman. You are this woman. You give too much, you expect too little, and even then, you find yourself disappointed. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from being the good woman, the one who remembers everyone's birthday, who listens to every sob story, who offers her shoulder when others need to cry, and her heart when others need to heal. You've perfected the art of being indispensable, believing that if you could just be good enough, pure enough, selfless enough, you would finally be chosen, finally be held, finally be safe. But instead, you find yourself here, in this familiar place of wondering why kindness feels like a curse and why your goodness seems to attract those who would consume it like fire consumes paper, completely, leaving nothing but ash in its wake. You weren't hurt because you were bad. You were hurt because you disappeared. Let me tell you something about the architecture of your pain, something Carl Jung understood about the human psyche that most never grasp. Your goodness isn't really goodness at all. It's a survival strategy you learned so early that you've forgotten it was ever a choice. Somewhere in your past, a small girl learned that love was conditional, that acceptance came with a price, and that price was the complete erasure of her own needs, her own voice, her own wild, untamed essence. You learned to be the perfect daughter, the understanding girlfriend, the supportive wife, the selfless mother, the reliable friend. You learned that your value was measured not by who you were, but by how well you could anticipate and fulfill the needs of others. You became a master of reading rooms, of sensing moods, of knowing exactly what someone needed to hear before they even knew they needed to hear it. But here's what no one told you. You were never meant to be a supporting character in your own life. The child within you made a bargain with the world. If I am perfect, I will be loved. If I am good, I will be safe. If I need nothing, I will never be abandoned. This wounded child, this part of you that Jung called the eternal child archetype, is still running the show, still believing that if you just try a little harder, give a little more, sacrifice a little deeper, you will finally earn the love you've been seeking. But love cannot be earned. It can only be recognized. You've been trying to negotiate your way into love, using your goodness as currency, your kindness as collateral. You've been operating from the unconscious belief that relationships are transactions, that you must pay for affection with pieces of yourself, that you must prove your worth through service and sacrifice. This is what Jung called projection. You project onto others the power to determine your worth, and then you dance to the rhythm of their expectations, hoping they will see you as valuable enough to keep. But what you're really doing is giving away your sovereignty, your sacred right to exist as you are, not as others need you to be. You've become what I call the wounded healer, the woman who believes she can cure others into loving her. You see someone struggling and you think, here is my chance to prove my worth. Here is my opportunity to be needed. You pour yourself into their wounds, believing that if you can fix them, they will finally see you as indispensable. But healing cannot be given. It can only be chosen. And love cannot be created through service. It can only be shared between two whole beings. You've been trying to heal your way into love, to serve your way into significance, to perfect your way into belonging. But the harder you try, the more you disappear. The more you give, the more you're taken from.
The better you become, the worse you feel. This is the cruel paradox of the good woman. In trying to be everything to everyone, you become nothing to yourself. Look at your relationships. Really look. How many of them would survive if you stopped giving more than you received? How many of the people you love would stay if you started setting boundaries? How many would choose you if you stopped choosing them first, always, without question? The answer frightens you, doesn't it? Because deep down you know that many of your relationships are built on your willingness to be less so that others can be more. You've become addicted to being needed because being needed feels safer than being wanted. Need implies necessity. Want implies choice. And choice terrifies you because choice means
Could choose someone else. So you make yourself indispensable. You become the woman who never says no, who never asks for what she needs, who never takes up too much space or demands too much attention. You become the woman who is always available, always understanding, always ready to forgive, always willing to give one more chance. But here's what you haven't realized. By trying to be everything to everyone, you've become attractive to those who want everything and give nothing. Your goodness doesn't attract good people. It attracts people who are comfortable taking from someone who has been trained never to ask for anything in return. You've been wondering why you keep attracting the wrong people, why you keep ending up in relationships that drain you, why you keep finding yourself with those who seem to love what you do for them, but never quite seem to love you. The answer is simple. You're not attracting them. You're available to them. There's a difference between being chosen and being settled for, between being loved and being convenient. You've been so focused on being convenient that you've forgotten what it feels like to be chosen. Your pain isn't random. It's not bad luck or poor timing or the result of a cruel universe. Your pain is the inevitable result of a pattern you've been unconsciously perpetuating, a dance you've been dancing since you were too young to know you were learning the steps. You give your energy to those who haven't earned it. You offer your heart to those who haven't shown they know how to handle it. You invest in people who haven't invested in you. And then you wonder why you're always disappointed, always hurt, always alone, even when you're surrounded by people who claim to care about you. The truth is, you've been in love with potential, not reality. You've been giving your real love to imaginary people, the person he could become if you loved him enough, the person she would be if you supported her enough, the person they might turn into if you were just patient enough. But potential isn't real. Only what is real. And what is that you're exhausted from trying to love people and to loving you back. You were not put on this earth to be a rehabilitation center for broken souls. You were not born to be a training ground for people learning how to love. You were not created to be a stepping stone to someone else's happiness. You were born to be loved as you are, not as you perform. You were created to be chosen, not convinced. You were meant to be celebrated, not tolerated. But you can't receive what you don't believe you deserve. And you can't be chosen by someone else until you choose yourself. The pain you feel isn't punishment for being good, it's information. It's your soul's way of telling you that something is wrong, that you've been living in a way that isn't sustainable, that you've been loving in a way that isn't love at all. Your goodness isn't the problem. Your self-abandonment is. Now, we must descend deeper into the cavern of your psyche, into the places where your patterns were forged in the fires of childhood and crystallized into the blueprint of your adult relationships. What you call goodness, what you've worn like a badge of honor, is actually a sophisticated defense mechanism, one so elegant, so socially acceptable that you've never questioned its true purpose. You were taught to be good, not because goodness was valued, but because goodness was safe. Picture a small girl, perhaps
5 or 6 years old, learning the intricate dance of emotional survival. She watches the faces of the adults around her, studying their moods like a meteorologist studies storm patterns. She learns that when mommy is stressed, she becomes invisible. When daddy is angry, she becomes helpful. When the house is tense, she becomes the peacemaker. When attention is scarce, she becomes the entertainer. This little girl, this younger version of you, wasn't born to be good. She was trained to be good. And there's a world of difference between the two. You learned that your emotional needs were inconvenient, that your feelings were too much, that your wants were selfish. You learned that love was something you had to earn through performance, that acceptance came with conditions, that your value was determined by how little space you took up and how much you could give. So, you became the good girl, the one who never complained, never demanded, never threw tantrums, the one who comforted others when they were hurt, who said, "It's okay," when it wasn't, who learned to swallow her own pain so that others wouldn't have to taste it. But here's what no one told you. That little girl's survival strategy became your adult relationship template. The very tactics that kept you safe as a child are now the very things that keep you trapped as a woman. You were taught to be good for survival, but you never learned to be good for yourself. This is what Jung called the complex, an autonomous cluster of ideas and feelings that operates independently of your conscious mind. Your goodness complex was formed in childhood and has been running your adult life like a computer program you never knew you had installed. The program runs like this: if I am good enough, I will be loved. If I am not good enough, I will be abandoned. Therefore, I must always be good. But this program has a fatal flaw. It mistakes performance for love and compliance for connection. You've been operating from the unconscious belief that your true self is fundamentally unlovable, that who you really are, with all your needs, desires, boundaries, and opinions, is too much, too complicated, too demanding. So you've created a false self, a perfectly curated version of yourself that you present to the world, believing this is what makes you lovable. But love cannot touch a false self. Only truth can be loved. Your goodness isn't authentic goodness. It's adaptive goodness. It's the goodness of a person who has learned to survive by being what others need rather than by being who she is. It's the goodness of someone who has confused serving others with serving herself, who has mistaken self-sacrifice for self-love. And here's where it gets dangerous. This adaptive goodness doesn't just attract people who need help. It attracts people who are comfortable taking from someone who has been trained never to ask for anything in return. It attracts users, takers, emotional vampires who can sense from a mile away that you're someone who will give and give and give without ever demanding reciprocity. You've been wondering why you keep attracting the wrong people, but the truth is you're not attracting them, you're available to them. And you're unavailable to the right people because healthy people don't want to be in relationships with someone who won't let them love her back. But there's something else happening here, something deeper and more complex than simple patterns of attraction. There's a shadow side to your goodness that you've never acknowledged, never even seen. Jung taught us that everything we repress, everything we deny about ourselves becomes shadow. And your shadow is enormous. You are not just good, you are also angry. You are not just giving, you are also resentful. You are not just understanding, you are also exhausted. You are not just loving, you are also furious. But you've been taught that anger is bad, that resentment is ugly.
Exhaustion is weakness, that fury is unacceptable. So you've pushed these feelings down, down, down into the basement of your psyche, where they've been festering, growing, gaining power. Your repressed anger doesn't disappear. It leaks out in passive-aggressive comments, in martyrdom, in the way you give with one hand while keeping score with the other. Your resentment doesn't vanish. It shows up in the way you feel victimized, in the way you attract people who take advantage of your goodness, in the way you unconsciously choose relationships that confirm your belief that you're destined to be disappointed. This is the shadow of the good woman. She's not just good, she's also deeply, secretly angry. And she's angry at the very people she's trying so hard to please. You're angry at your mother for teaching you that love was conditional. You're angry at your father for not showing you what healthy love looked like. You're angry at your ex-partners for taking what you gave without giving back. You're angry at your friends for calling you when they need something but being unavailable when you need them. You're angry at the world for not recognizing your worth, for not appreciating your sacrifices, for not rewarding your goodness with the love you've been seeking. But most of all, you're angry at yourself. You're angry at yourself for being so weak, for being so needy, for being so desperate for love that you've sold your soul for scraps of affection. You're angry at yourself for being smart enough to see the patterns, but not strong enough to break them. You're angry at yourself for being disappointed again and again by the same type of person, for falling for the same lies, for believing the same promises. This anger is not bad. This anger is information. This anger is your soul's way of telling you that something is wrong, that you've been living in a way that violates your deepest nature, that you've been betraying yourself in the name of love. But instead of listening to your anger, you've been medicating it with more goodness. Instead of setting boundaries, you've been giving more. Instead of demanding respect, you've been offering more understanding. Instead of walking away, you've been trying harder. This is the cycle that keeps you trapped. You give, you get disappointed, you get angry, you feel guilty about your anger, you give more to compensate for your badness, you get more disappointed, you get more angry, you feel more guilty, you give more,
even more. Round and round you go in a spiral that leads nowhere but deeper into your own abandonment. You live in a spiral. With each turn, you expect the ending to change, but the script is always the same. The script goes like this. You meet someone who seems different. They seem to appreciate your goodness, your kindness, your willingness to give. You feel seen, valued, chosen. You give them your all, believing that this time will be different, that this person will finally be the one who loves you back as much as you love them. But slowly, inevitably, the dynamic shifts. They begin to expect your goodness. They begin to take it for granted. They begin to need more and more from you while giving less and less in return. And you, desperate not to lose their love, give more and more, believing that if you just try harder, if you just love better, if you just prove your worth more convincingly, they will return to that person who seemed to see your value. But they never do, because they never saw your value in the first place. They saw your availability. They saw your willingness to be less so they could be more. They saw your hunger for love, and they fed you just enough to keep you coming back for more. And when it ends, when they leave, when they cheat, when they choose someone else, when they show you that your goodness wasn't enough, you blame yourself. You think you weren't good enough, you didn't give enough, you weren't worthy enough. You think the problem was with your goodness, so you resolve to be better, to give more, to try harder next time. But the problem was never with your goodness. The problem was with your self-abandonment. People who can't love you the way you need to be loved, because you don't know how to love yourself the way you need to be loved. You keep attracting people who are comfortable with your self-abandonment Because you are comfortable with your self-abandonment. The universe isn't punishing you for being good. The universe is reflecting back to you the relationship you have with yourself. And the relationship you have with yourself is one of conditional love, of performance-based worth, of self-abandonment disguised as selflessness. Until you change the relationship you have with yourself, you will keep attracting relationships that mirror that dysfunction. Until you learn to love yourself unconditionally, you will keep attracting people who love you conditionally. Until you learn to choose yourself, you will keep attracting people who won't choose you. The pattern will continue until it becomes conscious. The cycle will repeat until you break it. The pain will persist until you understand its message. And the message is this: you are not meant to disappear in order to be loved. You are meant to be fully yourself in order to be truly seen. The woman stands at the edge of a precipice, looking down into the abyss of her own making. Behind her lies the familiar path of goodness that leads to hurt, the well-worn groove of giving until empty, of loving until lost. Ahead of her lies the unknown territory of becoming whole. The choice is hers, as it has always been, though she spent a lifetime believing otherwise. This is the moment of individuation, Jung's term for the process of becoming who you truly are rather than who you think you should be. It's the sacred journey from the false self to the authentic self, from the good girl to the whole woman, from the wounded healer to the healed creator of her own destiny. You don't have to stop being good. You have to stop abandoning yourself. The transformation begins not with changing your nature, but with changing your relationship to your nature. Your capacity for love, your desire to nurture, your instinct to help, these are not flaws to be corrected. They are gifts to be honored. But gifts are meant to be given freely, not used as currency to purchase love. Imagine a woman sitting before a mirror, but this time, instead of applying makeup to please others, she's removing the masks she's worn for so long that she's forgotten her own face. Layer by layer, she peels away the good girl, the perfect daughter, the understanding wife, the selfless mother, the reliable friend. And beneath all these roles, beneath all these performances, she finds something she thought she'd lost forever: herself. This is not about becoming hard or closed or bitter. This is about becoming real. Your heart was never the problem. Your heart is vast, capable of holding oceans of love. The problem was that you were pouring that ocean into cups that could never hold it, into vessels that were already cracked, into containers that were never meant to receive what you were offering. The journey begins with a revolutionary act. You begin to give to yourself what you've been giving to others. You begin to listen to yourself the way you've been listening to others. You begin to comfort yourself the way you've been comforting others. You begin to choose yourself the way you've been choosing others. This feels selfish at first, doesn't it? Because you've been taught that self-love is selfishness, that self-care is self-indulgence, that putting yourself first is putting others last. But this is the lie that has kept you trapped. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot love others authentically while abandoning yourself consistently. Love is not a finite resource that diminishes when you give it to yourself. Love is infinite, and it begins with the relationship you have with the woman in the mirror. Picture this. A woman discovers a room in her house that she never knew existed. The door was always there, but she was so busy taking care of every other room that she never thought to open it. When she finally does, she finds that it's her room, not a room for her roles, not a room for her performances, but a room for her soul.
In this room, she finds the parts of herself she thought were lost forever. The woman who dreams, who desires, who demands, who decides. The woman who says no without explanation, who says yes without guilt, who exists without needing to justify her existence. This is the woman you're becoming. But the journey is not without its challenges. As you begin to change, as you begin to set boundaries, as you begin to choose yourself, the people around you will resist. They will call you selfish, difficult, changed. They will try to guilt you back into your old patterns, to manipulate you back into your old role. This is the test. This is where you discover who truly loves you and who simply loves what you do for them. Some people will fall away. This is not a
Loss, this is a revelation. You will discover that some of your relationships were built on your willingness to be less, and when you refuse to be less, there's nothing left to build on. This is painful, but it's also liberating. You're not losing love, you're losing the illusion of love. But others will surprise you. Others will meet you in your wholeness, will love you more for your boundaries, will respect you more for your self-respect. These are your people. These are the relationships worth keeping. The path of individuation requires you to disappoint some people. You cannot become whole without disappointing those who were comfortable with your brokenness. You cannot heal without leaving behind those who needed you to stay wounded. This is not cruel. This is necessary. You are not responsible for other people's growth. You are not responsible for other people's healing. You are not responsible for other people's happiness. You are responsible for your own becoming. Imagine a woman who has been carrying water in a basket her whole life, wondering why she's always thirsty. One day, she discovers that baskets are not meant to hold water, they're meant to hold things that don't leak. She doesn't need a better basket. She needs a different container altogether. Your relationships were the basket. Your love was the water. And you've been wondering why you're always empty, why nothing you do seems to work, why you keep losing what you're trying to hold. You don't need to love better. You need to love differently. You need to love from wholeness, not from emptiness. You need to love from choice, not from compulsion. You need to love from freedom, not from fear. This means learning to love with boundaries. It means learning to say no to what doesn't serve you so you can say yes to what does. It means learning to disappoint others so you can stop disappointing yourself. It means learning that love is not about sacrificing yourself for others. It's about showing up as yourself for others. The woman who emerges from this transformation is not less loving, she's more loving. She's not less good, she's more authentically good. She's not less giving, she's more conscious about her giving. She gives from overflow, not from emptiness. She loves from strength, not from weakness. She chooses from wisdom, not from woundedness. She is the woman who has learned to repair her own heart with gold, like the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is mended with
Precious metal, making it more beautiful than it was before it was broken. Your breaks, your wounds, your scars, they are not flaws to be hidden. They are the places where your light shines through. You are not broken. You are breaking open. The crown you thought you lost when you were small, the crown that was taken from you when you learned to be good instead of whole, you're going to rebuild it. Not with the approval of others, not with the validation of those who couldn't see your worth, but with the pieces of your own journey, with the gold of your own wisdom, with the jewels of your own experience. You don't need to stop being good. You need to stop being good for the wrong reasons. Be good because it flows from your authentic nature, not because you're trying to earn love. Be kind because it brings you joy, not because you're trying to avoid rejection. Be loving because it's who you are, not because you're trying to prove your worth. Love is not a reward for good behavior. Love is recognition of inherent worth. You were born worthy. You were born deserving. You were born enough. Not because of what you do, but because of who you are. Not because of how you perform, but because of how you exist. The woman you're becoming doesn't need to convince anyone of her value. She knows her value. She doesn't need to prove her worth. She embodies her worth. She doesn't need to earn love. She is love. This is your initiation into wholeness. This is your journey from the wounded healer to the healed creator. This is your path from the good girl to the whole woman. The ending of your story is not written yet. The patterns of your past do not determine the possibilities of your future. The woman you've been is not the woman you have to remain. You have the power to choose differently. You have the power to love differently. You have the power to be differently. The cycle ends when you decide it ends. The pattern breaks when you refuse to repeat it. The hurt stops when you stop hurting yourself in the name of love. You don't need to leave your heart behind. You need to bring your heart home to yourself. You are not too much. You are not too little. You are not too good to be loved properly. You are exactly enough, exactly right, exactly worthy of the love you've been seeking everywhere except in the one place it was always waiting for you, in yourself. The woman in the mirror is smiling now, but this time, the smile reaches her eyes. This time,
Reflection matches the soul. This time, she sees herself clearly, not as she performs, not as she pleases, not as she perfects, but as she is. And she is beautiful. She is worthy. She is enough. She is home.